Many of us probably remember how we learned the names of all the Great Lakes using the acronym HOME. Well, we've devised a simple way to help you begin to construct surveys using best practices. And we used a similar acronym called VOICE. And so each letter in the word VOICE will be used to help coach you through how to build a survey using best practices. So we'll be creating short videos using each letter to help guide you through the process. Mary, can you tell us a little more about the V in VOICE?
Certainly, Tom. The V in voice stands for vet your ideas. It's figuring out what's the concept behind your survey.
So, Mary, say that I have this great idea for a survey. What do I do?
Well, Keith, how do you know it's a great idea?
I guess it's a great place to start, right?
So,
How do I determine that? How do I figure that one out?
that plays into our whole idea of using your voice
Mm-hmm.
process. Again, the first step is to vet your ideas. What it means is to bring your ideas out, kind of like brainstorming.
Yeah, so we can be thinking about what kind of questions we want to go. So I'm thinking like if I have a new product that I want to see what features customers would want in a new product, or maybe I have a product I've had out for a little while. I want to see are customers liking it? Is it a good one? Is it meeting their needs? That kind of thing.
So, right, those are great ideas, but they could go even further than that. Let's say you changed a policy in human resources, or you were thinking about maybe adding a different benefits package. And you want to ask employees what
Mm-hmm.
they think of the change. I guess the idea is there's lots of great ideas out there, or it's easy to come up with ideas for
Right.
surveys. Now comes the tricky part.
How do you know that it fits?
That's right. Or how do you know it's a good idea
Yeah.
or a great idea? Is this idea a good idea for a survey? Surveys lend themselves to a few different kinds of questions, both quantitative and qualitative. So a quantitative, sort of mathematical one would be what rating does somebody give to a product? Or you may have heard of something called the NPS or Net Promoter Score, which would measure sort of with numbers whether or not somebody would want to recommend your company or recommend a particular
Right.
product. Another way of thinking about it is surveys might also be good for capturing qualitative data, say in a text box, so the words that people use. One of the things is to think about is this a good topic to be included in a survey? There's other ways of capturing data, so you want to think, how is this going to be captured in a survey? Are you going to be able to get clear responses from a survey format?
Right. So if I had my question, how do I determine that it fits into a survey format?
So there's a lot of ideas about how to vet a question for a survey. A lot of them are to think about is you have to look at it from the perspective of the person, the respondent, the person who's going to answer it. Are they going to understand the question? Meaning is it full of terms that they use, not terms that you use?
Right.
Is it filled with terms that they use? Is it in the appropriate language? Is it written at a grade level that's sort of generic across that group of respondents? And does some very basic, does the question actually make sense? And then is the response scale going to be the way you want the question answered? Are the choices that you give them familiar to the respondent? Is the word of pick 5 things that are important to you, and they none of them resonate with them? It's going to be hard to pick what's important if the language of the responses doesn't make sense to them. Question has to make sense. Language of the responses have to make sense. Response scale, the answer that they give, needs to be understandable as well. And then finally, is the format that you put in the response format going to make sense for what you want to measure? If you want to measure percentages of something,
Mm-hmm.
you have to ask a good question with a good response, but in a format that's going to lend itself to getting you a percentage answer. So those are some of the things to think about from the the survey questions.
Yeah, that all makes a lot of sense, and some things that might seem obvious, but you actually have to bring it out to focus on it. So yeah, so today we've really focused on the idea part, the what behind your surveys in the V of voice for vetting our ideas. But I hope that you'll join us for our next Use Your Voice video, where we'll start getting into the how. So we'll see you then.